Story 1. When I was about 10 years old, my mom told me that when she was 12, she was in bed at night. She lived in Puerto Rico. She heard her mom and dad arguing in the kitchen. Her dad might have been drunk. I don't recall if my mom said. She heard her mom screaming and then go silent. Her dad had hurt her mom to death. He went to prison. My mom and her siblings got adopted out to other families. Story 2, it was in 6th grade, and I was about 11 years old at the time. A girl in my class had been missing from school for quite a while. We asked our teacher what the problem was, but she refused to answer. We then kind of just let it slide and didn't think about it anymore. A few weeks later, there was a story in the news about a 12-year-old girl who had been taken advantage of by a 39-year-old man. We joked around saying that it was probably her until she finally came to class one morning and told everyone that it was true. I have literally never seen a classroom that silent before in my life. Story 3. In 1994, a now-retired judge told me he and 2 childhood friends were responsible for the accidental passing of a classmate down by a creek where they were playing one day. He had pretty much kept it to himself for a lifetime. Story 4. My classmate in high school, I thought he was pretty weird, but also a nice guy. Turned out he's bipolar and manages it with medication. But one time, he was off it and lost control in an argument with his little brother. He ended up hurting the poor kid really badly. Once he regained his senses and realized what he did, he tried to harm himself. I'm not sure how. He didn't specify. His dad was also an abusive drunk who would hurt him sometimes. He told the story pretty calmly. I really hope he's doing much better now. Story 5. My next-door neighbor has recently been arrested and charged with serious offenses from the past and is awaiting trial. But because he has not gone to trial yet, we cannot do anything about it since it's innocent until proven guilty. Even though we have a 7-year-old daughter that he has shown a keen interest in, we thought he was just a lonely old man trying to be nice. So now we have a few months to wait and see what happens. We have to resist the urge to tell anyone in the area. And even though it makes me sick, legally, if I do anything, I could end up in jail myself. So we just have to be very vigilant where he is concerned and keep him at arm's length without letting on to our girl that he may be a bad person. Story 6. My father had 6 children from 4 different women. One he got pregnant while married to his first wife. He put the child up for adoption in secret so his wife wouldn't find out. The only people who knew were his mom, dad, and the mother of the child's family. He lied to his current wife about it when his second wife found the papers in his office while they were going through a divorce. 30 years later, a DNA test reunited all of us, and he quickly found out that this secret wasn't really a secret. Everyone in the family knew and just didn't say anything. The child put up for adoption was me. What really sucks for him is if he had just been open about it, it may have saved him many years of pain. Story 7. I've told the story on here before, but a girl I worked with once told me about her first love. They dated for a while, fell madly in love, and lost their virginities to each other. Her family situation was weird. Her parents weren't married, but when her dad was in town, her parents were a couple, and when he wasn't, they weren't. One time while he was in town, she introduced him to her boyfriend. They got along and started talking. After the boyfriend left, her dad told her she couldn't see him anymore. Turns out he was the kid's father. She had unknowingly fallen in love with and been with her half-brother. Story 8. That my aunt offered to adopt me when my brother and I were born. My mom didn't like girls, didn't want a girl, and made it clear that she only had me because I was in there with my brother. By the time she knew I was a girl, there wasn't much she could do. My mom originally told her yes and was fully prepared to hand me over, but after backlash from the family, us kids and our dad never knew about any of this until very recently, she decided to keep me just to keep up appearances. Then she lied to everyone, saying that my aunt had tried to take me away because she was jealous my mom had babies and she couldn't. My aunt had already had 4 miscarriages by this point. My life could have been so much different if I'd grown up with someone who actually wanted me and didn't actively resent my existence in their lives. Story 9. I made a post asking about secrets. A woman messaged me from a throwaway account, which was deleted soon after. As a girl, she had sleepovers at her house all the time. Her father was well-liked by parents and would spoil them with takeout, nail polish, and whatnot. What actually happened was that, at bedtime, her father would drug the girls, remove their clothes, pose them with himself or each other, and take photos. If she didn't keep bringing girls over, her father would hurt her instead. I found that to be pretty disturbing, or it could have been made up. That would be pretty disturbing too. Story 10. Shortly after my third son was born, my grandma told me that my grandpa helped his brother-in-law cover up a murder back in the 70s. A guy that lived a few houses down had been accused of hurting several kids in the neighborhood, but got off on a technicality. When I asked her why she would tell me that, she said that now that I was a father, I needed to know that sometimes you have to do the hardest things to protect your kids. I never believed her until I asked my mom about it several years later, and she had a full-blown panic attack. I've never seen my mother lose it like that. It scared the life out of me. She wouldn't tell me if she had been one of the kids who got hurt, but judging by her reaction, I have to assume so. Story 11. Not really a secret, but it was something told to me once and then never discussed again. A close family friend had blocked some memories from her childhood, during which her grandfather did horrible things to her and her brother. She was fighting brain cancer as an adult and believed that part of her sickness came from the stress of the repressed memories. I was told what happened to her, with details, and never shared it with anyone else. Use your imagination. It's worse than that. She passed away from cancer. People like that grandfather should be locked away forever. Story 12. One of my aunts ended her husband one night after years of abuse. He was an aggressive drunk who used to hurt her and her 2 children. One day after he came home drunk and went through the entire ordeal, he went to bed. She tried to get his boots off, and he kicked her in the face, breaking her nose. And that was it, she snapped, decided it was enough. She waited for him to fall asleep, took an axe, and ended him. She then went to the police, still covered in evidence, and turned herself in. She was sentenced to 10 years but was released after 6 due to the circumstances. She and her kids lived happily and in peace after that. It was kept a secret for years so people wouldn't judge her. She passed away last summer, and that's when I found out. Her daughter told me the story. Story 13. A friend was leaving a friend's house one morning. The friend had 4 teacup Maltese dogs. I guess when he was walking over some covers on the floor, he heard a crunch. When he lifted the covers, he saw the little dog having a seizure and twitching all over the floor. He tried to pick it up, but at that moment, the dog passed in his hand. He left without saying a word. The friend who owned the house was asking everyone about his dog and was planning to do an autopsy, but he ended up not doing it because it would cost too much. Story 14. When I was 12, my parents sent my older brother and me to visit our aunt during summer break. One day, out of the blue, my aunt pulled me aside and told me that my dad had a family before us, but his wife and baby had not survived childbirth. Then she told me not to tell anyone. It's been 10 years and I still haven't told my mom or dad. Story 15. Apparently, she thought it was for an arranged marriage, and he just went along with it. Whenever he was single, they would hook up. I found out by accident when he left his email open. There was a message from her talking about wanting to have his babies when she came home on leave from the Air Force. When I confronted him, he begged me not to tell anyone. He said it was just something they did because it felt natural since they had grown up together, even though they weren't biologically related. I was absolutely disgusted. I wanted to break up with him right then and there, but I didn't. For 2 years, I kept the secret. I didn't tell his family, didn't tell our friends, nothing. But then he did something that pushed me over the edge. He stole $2,000 from me to go visit her. That was it. I was done. I packed my bags, moved out of state, and decided it was time for his family to know the truth. I sent his mom a letter with a printout of the email. I didn't stick around to see what happened next, but I imagine it tore their family apart. I never spoke to him again.